My girlfriend said, "I wish I met him first." I replied, "Then go to him." Then I moved out of our apartment, blocked her number, focused on my career, and I just smiled because she had to watch me show up a year later with someone who actually respected me. My girlfriend of 5 years just told my best friend she wished she would met him first instead of me at my brother's wedding in front of half my family, and somehow I am the one being called oversensitive. I am Kai, 32, work as an nurse here in Portland. My girlfriend Lydia is 30, pharmaceutical sales, makes good money, and never lets me forget it. We have been together 5 years, living together for 3, and honestly, things have been comfortable but transactional lately. She is always making little comments about how I lack drive compared to her corporate friends, how my job is messy and unglamorous. I kept telling myself she was just stressed from work. My younger brother Ethan was getting married last weekend at this gorgeous vineyard estate in the Willamette Valley. 3-day celebration, rustic, elegant, the whole 9 yards. Lydia was beyond excited because she loves these kinds of social events. She spent literally 4 hours getting ready for the rehearsal dinner alone, dressing like she was attending the Met Gala or something. The moment we arrived, her entire energy shifted when she met Noah, my college roommate and Ethan's best man. Noah is this successful tech entrepreneur. Charming, well-dressed, exactly the type of guy Lydia always talks about wanting to network with. Throughout the rehearsal dinner, I watched her laugh at every single one of his jokes, compliment his career achievements, touch his arm when she talked to him. Small gestures, but they made my stomach churn. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. This is just how Lydia is at social events. She is naturally extroverted, right? She is just being friendly. The actual wedding was beautiful. Ethan looked so happy, and I was genuinely enjoying myself until the reception started. The vineyard had these warm string lights everywhere, creating this romantic atmosphere that should have been perfect for us. Instead, I felt like I was watching my girlfriend audition for someone else's attention all night. Around 10 p.m., I went looking for Lydia to ask if she wanted to dance. I found her at the outdoor bar with Noah, leaning in close with a glass of champagne in her hand. That is when I heard her say it clear as day because I was maybe 10 ft away. "I wish I would met someone like you before, Kai. You are what I always pictured I would end up with." Noah completely froze. You could see the panic in his eyes. I just stood there for a second, processing what I had heard, then walked closer. Lydia turned around, saw me, and had the audacity to laugh. "Oh my God, relax. It is just a compliment. Stop being so sensitive." The conversation around us went dead silent. My cousin Sarah was right there. 2 of my aunts heard it. Noah muttered something about needing to find the bathroom and basically fled the scene, looking mortified. Lydia rolled her eyes and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You are making this awkward for everyone." I walked away without saying a word, the look on my mother's face when I passed her table. It was this mixture of disgust and sympathy that I will never forget. She heard it too. Later that night in our hotel room, Lydia tried to downplay everything again. "You are blowing this completely out of proportion. You know how I get after a few glasses of champagne." I looked at her and said, "No, I know how you get when you think people are watching." She called me jealous and insecure, said I was embarrassing myself by making a scene over nothing. But here is what really got to me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even pretending to understand why I was hurt. She was annoyed that I had the nerve to be upset about it. I told her calmly, "You can stay for the rest of the weekend if you want, but we are done after that." She laughed. Actually laughed. Said I was being dramatic and that I would get over it by morning. I packed my things and drove to my parents' guest house that night. As I am writing this, I am realizing something that probably should have been obvious a long time ago. This wasn't about the champagne or the moment or even Noah specifically. This was about how she sees me, how she has always seen me. The truth is, I think she has been settling for me this whole time, waiting for someone better to come along. And now I know for sure. So, Reddit, am I overreacting here? Because everyone keeps telling me I should just let it go since she was drinking. But something inside me says this is bigger than one comment at a wedding. Update 1. The morning after the wedding, Lydia acted like absolutely nothing had happened. She was up early doing her makeup, posing for photos with the other guests at brunch, like she was some kind of Instagram influencer. Meanwhile, I am sitting there feeling like my entire relationship just imploded in public, and she is worried about getting the perfect shot for her stories. My mom quietly pulled me aside during brunch and said, "You handled that with more dignity than most people would have. Let her keep embarrassing herself." Honestly, hearing that from my mom meant everything. I was worried my family would think I was making a big deal out of nothing. The real conversation I needed to have was with Noah. I found him before we all checked out, and he immediately started apologizing. He told me Lydia had been flirty with him all weekend, making comments about how successful he was, asking personal questions about his income and lifestyle. He said he had been trying to redirect the conversations, but didn't want to make things awkward since it was Ethan's wedding. I told him he didn't cross any lines. She did, and I meant it. The drive home was brutal. 3 hours of complete silence. When we got to our apartment, Lydia finally tried to address it, but not in the way I expected. She started with, "So what now? Are we seriously doing this?" over one comment. I looked at her and said, "You humiliated me in front of everyone I love." The joke wasn't the problem. The truth inside it was that is when she got defensive, called me fragile, said, I was throwing away 5 years over my pride. But I realized something in that moment. This wasn't about pride at all, I said. Pride numbers self-respect. I moved out within 48 hours. Ethan and his new wife let me stay in their guest room temporarily while I figured things out. The whole time I was packing, Lydia kept alternating between anger and bargaining. 1 minute she was telling me I was making a huge mistake. The next she was promising things would be different if I just gave her another chance. But here is what really sealed it for me. After I had loaded most of my stuff into my car, she said, "You know what? Fine. You will never find anyone who puts up with your schedule and your stress like I did." Even at the end, even when she was supposedly trying to save our relationship, she couldn't help but make it about how I wasn't good enough for her. The aftermath has been interesting to say the least. Lydia posted something on social media about how some men cannot handle confident women. Her followers started commenting with those supportive fire emojis, and "you deserve better" queen-type responses. But then mutual friends who were actually at the wedding started chiming in. My cousin Sarah commented, "You said that in front of his mom, Lydia. That is not confidence. That is cruelty." A few other people who witnessed it backed her up. The comments section turned into this whole debate about what actually happened. Lydia deleted the entire post within a few hours, but not before screenshots started circulating in our friend group. Meanwhile, I have stayed completely off social media. I am focusing on work, and I started seeing a therapist to process everything. It has been helpful to talk to someone neutral about the patterns I ignored for so long. What I am learning is that this wasn't really about one night or one comment. It was about 5 years of small cuts that I kept making excuses for. The constant comparisons to other men. The way she would introduce me to her work friends, like she was apologizing for bringing me. How she would get embarrassed when I showed up to her company event still in scrubs after a long shift. I thought that was just her personality. Turns out it was her settling. Update 2. I know it has been a while since I updated, but some things have happened that I thought you would want to hear about. The short version is that I am doing really well. Lydia is not, and I am starting to understand what healthy actually feels like. First, the Lydia situation. She has tried reaching out probably a dozen times over the past 6 months. The voicemails started apologetic but got progressively angrier when I didn't respond. The last one was her screaming about how I ruined her reputation and how mutual friends were taking my side unfairly. I ended up blocking her number through the grapevine. I heard she tried to contact Noah a few weeks after our breakup. Apparently, she found him on LinkedIn and sent some message about wanting to clear the air and maybe grab coffee to network. He told me about it when he visited Portland for work. He never responded to her, but he screenshot it in case I needed it for anything legal. Nothing came of it, but it confirmed what I already knew about her motivations that night. Her career took a hit, too, though I only heard about this recently. She apparently had some kind of public meltdown at a company retreat. One of her former colleagues told a mutual friend that Lydia got drunk and went on this rant about being undervalued and how she was surrounded by people who didn't appreciate her worth. They had to have someone drive her back to her hotel. She is still with the same company, but word is she has been passed over for promotions twice since then. The friend group fallout has been real. A lot of people who were at the wedding have quietly distanced themselves from her, not because I asked them to or anything like that, but because they saw her behavior firsthand and drew their own conclusions. Sarah told me Lydia showed up uninvited to a birthday party last month and spent the whole time complaining about how everyone was being fake to her. She left early. As for me, I have thrown myself into work and it has been incredible. I got promoted to charge nurse, which means I am mentoring new staff and helping shape how our ER operates. There is something deeply satisfying about being recognized for my skills and dedication, in a way that Lydia never did. But the biggest change has been volunteering with a youth outreach program that works with kids who end up in our ER for mental health crisis. It is heavy work, but it feels important in a way that makes all those comments about my unglamorous career seem ridiculous in hindsight. That is actually how I met Tessa. She is a trauma counselor who works with our teen patients, 29, and probably the most grounded person I have ever encountered. She is direct without being cruel, funny without needing to be the center of attention, and completely unimpressed by status or image. We started as colleagues, then friends, and now, well, we are taking things slow, but there is something there. What strikes me most about Tessa is that she sees my job as important, not embarrassing. She understands the weight of what we do, the skill it requires, the difference we make. When I tell her about difficult cases, she listens with respect, not judgment. For the first time in years, I feel like someone actually sees me instead of comparing me to some imaginary ideal. We talk about books. We cook together. We take long hikes without her checking her phone every 5 minutes to post about it. It is quiet and real in a way that my relationship with Lydia never was. I am not saying this to be vindictive about Lydia's struggles. Honestly, I hope she figures her life out, but there is something deeply validating about realizing that the problem was never me not being enough. The problem was being with someone who made me believe I wasn't. The contrast is striking. With Lydia, I was constantly trying to prove my worth. With Tessa, my worth is just assumed. That is what partnership is supposed to feel like. Final update. This will probably be my last update, but I wanted to share what happened last weekend because it brought everything full circle in a way I wasn't expecting. Ethan and his wife had their baby shower at the same vineyard where his wedding took place a year ago. They specifically chose the location because they got married there, and it holds good memories for them. I was honestly a little nervous about going back, but Tessa encouraged me to face it head-on. She was right. The day was beautiful. Everyone was excited about the upcoming baby. The weather was perfect, and I felt genuinely happy to be there with my family. Tessa fit in seamlessly with everyone, helping set up decorations and making easy conversation with my relatives. My mom kept whispering to me how much she likes her, which was sweet. About halfway through the afternoon, I was helping carry gifts inside when I heard someone behind me say, "Oh God, is that Lydia?" I turned around to see a familiar car pulling up to the vineyard. Lydia stepped out wearing a sundress that was way too formal for a casual baby shower, carrying an elaborately wrapped gift bag. You could feel the energy shift among the guests who recognized her. Conversation stopped. People started whispering. My sister-in-law looked mortified. This was supposed to be her day, and now there was this awkward tension hanging over everything. I told Tessa to stay with my family and walked over to intercept Lydia before she could get to the main party area. She looked exhausted but was trying to maintain that composed facade. She always wore to social events when she saw me approaching. She straightened up and said, "I just wanted to apologize. You will not answer my messages." I kept my voice calm and said, "You don't need to keep apologizing. I understood exactly who you were that night." That is when she started tearing up. She insisted she didn't mean it and that the alcohol made it worse than it sounded. But I realized something in that moment. Even a year later, she still wasn't taking actual responsibility. She was still making excuses. I said, "No, the alcohol just gave you permission to say what you already thought." Her voice broke and she said, "I have lost everything, Kai, don't you even care a little?" I paused for a long moment, really considering her question. Then I said, "I did for 5 years, but you didn't, and that is why we are here." She broke down completely, then sobbing about how she had made a mistake and how everyone had turned against her unfairly. I felt bad for her pain, but I also felt this incredible clarity about the difference between regret and actual change. She was sorry about the consequences, not the choices that led to them. My sister-in-law appeared beside us and quietly told Lydia that this was a private family event and asked her to leave. Lydia looked at me one last time like she was hoping I had intervened, but I just stood there. She walked back to her car and drove away. Later that evening, Tessa and I watched the sunset over the vineyard, sitting in almost the exact spot where everything had fallen apart a year ago. The parallel wasn't lost on me. My sister-in-law came over and hugged me, saying I had handled the situation with more grace than most people could have managed. I smiled and told her, "Maybe, but I learned that peace feels better than proving you are right." As we drove home that night, Tessa asked me how I felt about seeing Lydia again. I thought about it for a while before answering. I told her that mostly I felt sad for who Lydia could have been if she had learned to value what she had instead of always looking for something better. But I also felt grateful. Grateful that her cruelty that night showed me exactly who she was before I wasted any more years trying to be enough for someone who had already decided I wasn't. Grateful that I learned the difference between being loved and being tolerated. Grateful that I found someone who sees my life's work as noble instead of embarrassing. The truth is Lydia was right about one thing that night. She did deserve to meet someone like Noah instead of me, not because Noah is better than me, but because they would have deserved each other. Someone who values image over substance, success over character, networking over connection. She once said she wished she would met someone like my best friend. Turns out she was right. She needed someone else to teach her what losing a good man really looks like. These days, I wake up next to someone who chose me, not despite who I am, but because of who I am. Someone who thinks saving lives for a living is the most attractive thing about me. Someone who would never dream of humiliating me in public because she actually likes me as a person. That is what I should have had all along. That is what everyone should have. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I hope anyone reading this who is being made to feel not enough by their partner realizes that the right person will make you feel like more than enough exactly as you.